Today's the day we've all been waiting for. It's the launch of the Modlite PL350, and that's what we're talking about today. So I want to give you guys a quick overview. I'm going to drop this video before a lot of the sites go live, so you kind of have some information on them. Thankfully, Tag Firearms was able to get me one early, so shout out to Tag Firearms. If you're looking for one, they will have them in stock. Go to tagfirearms.com. I will link them down below. You can go purchase one from them. Also, Big Tex Outdoors will have them as well, so check out either one of those sites. Try to get your hands on one before they're all sold out. But before you purchase one, watch this video. So really quick, what the Modlite comes with, you're obviously going to get the light, you're going to get the battery that is already inside, you're going to get two of these little press-in plates, and what those are for is that we're going to mount in here, and they give you different mounting options. So if you're running for a Glock or a traditional 1913 style rail, it gives you two options to work with that. So you can use whichever one you need, and then it gives you different spacing to put those in. So you can adjust the fit specifically to the rail on your gun and the trigger guard and how it fits in there. One of the other nice touches of this comes fitted with the Filster paddles. I really like that. I did a whole video on that, on those. You can check those up there. But these are more ergonomic and they work better, especially when you're trying to rack it with your thumb or off of vehicles or holsters. Super nice. And then in there you get the package that has the additional sizes. And then on top of that, if you get the package that has the charger, it's gonna come with your charger and little USB cable. They also sell it as a package without the charger if you already own one or own a bunch of 1350 batteries. So you have two options to pick from there. So let's give a quick overview of the features and then we'll talk about performance later. At launch, these will ship with the PLHV2 head, which has a 5800 Kelvin color temperature rating, has 1350 lumens and 54,000 candela. This is their kind of like middle ground, best all-around model. There are some other models, and we'll talk more about those later. This also features the battery from the front design. So one of the bad things is like if you mount a Surefire to get your batteries out, you have to take it off of your gun to put batteries in, and it's not, you know, a real pain. It's just a little bit of a nuisance, you know, and you have to make sure your Loctite is still on there and it might come loose later. And so it's just one of those things that makes it super simple to use because you can just unscrew the head, change out your battery, put a new one in, and you're good to go without ever having to take the light off the gun. One of the things that I also like is that it has a very positive and tactile click when you engage the light. So you have this as to where the X300 has more of that muted, like just kind of mushy engagement. So I like that. Now I will say there is one downside to that I wish that it had, and it's that I wish the spring tension to turn it off and on was a little bit stiffer, because one issue I ran into in testing this, I've only been running it for about a week because it's as early as they could get it to me. When I was carrying it around in the floodlight holster, now this probably will not happen in other holsters, but when I carried it in the floodlight holster, the spring tension is so light that when the light moves around in there and it bumps it, it would kick the light on, and all of a sudden my crotch is either glowing or very, very hot. And the first time it happened, I wasn't sure what was going on, and I was like, why is my crotch, like, what is happening? I was very, very concerned. But this had kicked on, and it was the light head was getting really hot. So just something to be aware of. But I think in most holsters that we're going to be running, I don't think you'll run into that issue, especially if you're putting it in a duty holster. But just be aware of it. But maybe in a future iteration, they'll just increase the spring tension on that just a little bit. Now, one thing I know guys will complain a lot about, and I've already heard a bunch, and that is that there's no momentary on. Now, personally, I don't really use momentary on. It all just depends on you and your training, and it's one of those things where you'll just have to be quicker about it. I don't see it being a big enough issue where they will change that in the future. They may if there's enough market demand, but I just don't use momentary enough. Now, professional end users, guys that I've talked to, like Brad from Uncommon Line, he mentioned that he likes to use it if he's peeking really quick into a car. But again, that's very specific to your job and what you're doing. So you've got to determine for you and you know what you're doing. But for most of us, especially in a self-defense situation or an EDC situation, probably not going to be momentary scanning with a weapon light. That will probably happen with your pocket flashlight or some other light. So I just don't see that being an issue for most end users, but take that as you will. Now, when I first got this, I wasn't sure if it was going to live up to the same kind of hype as the rifle lights. And the reason was, for somebody like me who's using this in a home defense, self-defense capacity, I wanted to test it in environments where I'm more likely to use it. So started in the house, looking down hallways, through thresholds, into rooms, around my house, and then later on into vehicles. Now, when I started in the house, immediately when I was looking down the hallway and I put a target at the end of the hallway, I couldn't tell that big of a difference between the X300 and the Modlite. And I was like, man, maybe this isn't that big of a deal. Maybe it's not going to be as good as the rifle lights were. And then I used it in a torch capacity, so like this to light, if you're trying to light a room that way. And again, it felt like the X300 was better because it has that wider flood. It was giving more light into the room or into the hallway so I could see more. But with the hotspot being so hot here for that throw, that it didn't really give a lot of floodlight in the room. And then working into thresholds, looking into a room, you could see that as the light would come across, you'd get that reflection back. And it's because there's such a stark contrast between your hotspot, where all the candela is, and then your flood. As the light would start to bleed over, you're not getting a lot of light in the room. And then once that hotspot hits, then it's like a bunch of information. So it kind of felt like searching with a spotlight. As to where using the X300, when you have that wide flood that's pretty even across the board, you're getting that information sooner and you're getting a lot more information. Now, this is all at very close distances. We're talking in a 10 to 12 foot room. You're talking about a maybe 10 yard hallway. So once we backed that up and we started shooting with these at 10 plus yards, 15 yards, it became very evident that the Modlite is indeed living up to the hype, and it is the better light, and that you should go with it. And as you can see, we were testing them at an indoor range where it's a controlled environment. We turned off all the lights. And then I also wanted to see shooting it in there, and I wanted to see how well this would cut through the smoke and the gas that comes off a gun when you're shooting in a confined area in the dark. And it cut through no problems. You can see very clearly as we search and scan. Obviously, you see that hot spot, but as you back up, this X300 just kind of goes out the window. It gets so dim you can barely see your target. And then with the Modlite, it was so clear to pick out what you're shooting and to see your target and getting all that information, that feedback, especially as we continue to back up. And you could back up even further with this, and this would just continue to diminish and this would continue to shine. I've seen guys shooting out to, I want to say like 75, 80 yards, pistol shots with these. I'm sure you could still push it to like 100. But I think this is probably going to be the way to go for most people. Now, if you're somebody who needs more of the flood and you need a little bit more of that information sooner and not such a stark contrast, maybe you don't need the candela of the throw, I would say wait. Don't get this light. Wait until the end of September and get the Modlite PL350, which is going to be their new head designed specifically for pistols. It's going to offer a 5,000 Kelvin color temperature along with 1,500 lumens and a 29,000 candela. So what you're getting is more lumens, a little less candela. They say it's similar to their PLH-V1 head, if you're familiar with that. The warmer color temperature is easier on the eyes in urban environments and indoors. So maybe that would be a better fit for a lot of you guys. And when I was talking with Brad from Uncommon Line, who gets to do some cool guy stuff, I'm not gonna say what he does, but he gets to do some cool guy stuff. And we were talking and he was messing with this. And he said, you know, if I'm working around I shouldn't say that. Okay, so anyways, I was talking with Brad and he was telling me, he's like, hey, in this particular situation, if we had to work around vehicles and I come up and I see a pillar and I have that hotspot hit the pillar and I get that reflection back, because the flood isn't bright enough, I'm not gonna see what's in the vehicle, I'm just gonna see the flash off of there. He said, so in that situation, it may not benefit him, but it is very clear that from a further distance, yes, you can see into the vehicle, you can see around. If you're looking in an urban environment, it does cut through ambient light really well compared to the X300, which kind of gets drowned out. So yes, I think it will be great for majority of people, but there are certain situations where you may, depending on your line of work, what your specific use is, you may want to wait and get the PLH-5K head, or get the light now because you know they're in stock, and then just re-up and get that head later on. So again, Tag Firearms has these, Big Tex Outdoors has them. You can get them at either one of those places. And again, big thank you to Tag Firearms for getting this to me early so that I could do the review on it. Lastly, I want to note a couple things about holsters. So one of the big things that I was excited about as we talked about this as it was coming out and we heard more and more about it was we were hearing that it was going to be able to retrofit older holsters that worked for the X300. Now we know that is not the case, but Modlite has done a really good job of kind of getting ahead of the launch, getting molds out to different holster makers, and getting all that information so that they can have holsters ready to go at the time of drop. So you'll be able to buy from your favorite holster companies, particularly QVO Tactical. I know Roger's got some, and I'm going to be getting some from him. So shout out to QVO Tactical and Roger for getting those ready. There's a bunch of other ones. You can check those out on their website. For those of you who are using them in a professional capacity, so if you're using a duty holster, most of you are probably using Safariland. I will tell you that on their site they say, and from experience I know firsthand, the 6000 series will work with the Modlite. So if you've got a Glock and you're running the 6000 or is it 6390, if you're running that, this will work in there. If you're using the newer 7000 series, this will not work in there. So you'll have to switch to the older holster, or you'll have to hang on to your Surefire and use that. So those are your two options for duty. I know there's more out there, but those are the two most popular that I know of. But that is the Modlite PL350. If you have questions or you feel like I missed something, leave it in the comments down below. Also check out Modlite's website. They have a whole page set up with FAQs. They have a chart for different holster companies and what holsters work with what guns and this light, along with setup information, all that in there. They've done a great job of getting information for the consumer to have ready to go. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Karate chop that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Also, I know I'm gonna get questions. I know you guys are gonna ask. I know there's gonna be at least that one person who gets in the comments and says, hey, where can I get that shirt? Is that shirt available? Is there a link? Shirts will drop Friday at 5 Central. This Friday, 5 Central, August 27th. On jimsgoonlife.com. We will post them up on Instagram. I will actually be doing a whole video explaining the thought process and theory behind each design that we have coming out. So keep an eye out for that. We do have a limited quantity of these shirts, so once they're gone, they're gone. So if you want to hop on those, make sure you get your check cashed early and be ready to buy some. Hey buddy, I'm filming, dude.
Mommy, Daddy.
It's okay.